You're here recording a new Stars record,
Yeah,
and we were chatting earlier. You had just done a Memphis record.
yeah,
That was funded by an Indiegogo campaign.
yeah.
So that was successful. You reached your goal. I happen to like it. I think that's a good democracy. People get to vote with their dollars if they want to support your
And it's
product.
basically like they're spending their money before they buy the record, right?
Right.
Like anybody who gave us $10 gets a CD or a digital download. So they're really just buying it in advance and allowing us to make the product that they're eventually going to own.
Right.
Which to me seems like a really good model, you know?
I like that model. What happens? Where did the pressing go on the distribution? That's still handled by labels.
No, I mean, we don't know yet. We haven't finished the record. So once it's finished, you know, there's options. We can either create our own company and put it up online digitally, or we could go to a label and see if they would handle it. I'm not quite sure what I want to do with it right now. Part of me wants to go to a label because there's so much administrative work and so much hassle involved in doing it yourself.
Yeah.
But on the other hand, it would be cool to follow through on the independent spirit of it and to try and really, you know, complete the task on our own. And I have great friends, you know, who do PR and who do other things who want to step up and help out and are working for way below their pay grade.
Yeah.
And it's fun to do that stuff with your friends. It's fun to make art with your friends and to feel like you've created something completely from scratch, you know, with people that you love. I think that's a good way to spend your time.
Yeah.
You know.
Well, we touched on it before we were rolling. So, Stars, you guys have, in the past, you kind of took advantage of the Factor grants.
Yeah.
Do you guys still do that?
Well, no, they no longer fund us.
Okay.
Our gravy train pulled out of the station. So, you know, we had years of Factor support, and we could not have a career without it.
Right.
I mean, you know, there was a lot of tours and a lot of times when Factor made it possible for us to get on the road at a loss and go play that room again and create an audience in places. And, you know, I think Factor as an idea is super important in Canada because there's this huge country with vast spaces between it.
Yeah.
And bands, it's really hard to make a drive across Canada pay the bills, you know? If you're only getting 50 people a night or something, you need that subsidization. And that's what Factor gave us. So, you know, at this point, we can do that on our own, and so they don't fund us, which is fair enough.
So is that the fundamental difference? I mean, with the success of like Super Chunk and their label, or I think it's Sid at Les Savvy Fav and French Kiss Records, like they grew their indie scene. Was it purely because of the short drives, the number of population?
Well, yeah, I think that's a big part of it. There's 10 times more people in the United States, and you know, Superchunk and Savvy Fav, those guys got into music when people were still buying records.
That's right.
So you could show up at a show and you could set up your merch table, and even though your guarantee might only be $200, you made another $500 on your merch. Yeah. Now, nobody buys records. You know, merch used to be a huge part of what made it work for a band. Now, people don't buy records, so...
Well, they still buy...
They buy vinyl. They buy vinyl and they buy
vinyl.
T-shirts, but they don't, you know, like you used to just get rid of a box of CDs on a night, you know? And that doesn't happen anymore. So it's just, you know, we released our first album in 2000. That was the year that the most records were sold in the history of music. And our career has been like the descent of the music industry has like paralleled our career. And, you know, now like the free fall has happened. Yeah. And you really just have to look at an album as a promotional tool to promote your shows. And if it happens to sell some copies, then that's a bonus. Yeah. But, you know, streaming and all these things has just completely destroyed the recording aspect of the music industry.
Right. And that's where Indiegogo comes in. You have a more direct, like a fan, they kind of know what they're going to get from you. You know, they've got a nice back catalog, so if that's what, they feel safe investing their capital into your artistic endeavors.
The way I look at my music career now is like I have a shop, you know? It's a little shop, it's a corner store. We sell certain things. We don't sell everything, but we make good stuff, and if you like our stuff, you can always come to our store and we'll sell it to you at a reasonable price, and we promise we won't let you down. You know, it's like any local business. And I don't worry about all the people who don't like Stars or don't like Memphis or have never heard of us anymore.
Yeah.
I worry about the people who do. And as long as I can continue a relationship of trust with those people, hopefully I can stay in business. You know, like I go to the same lady at, you know, the Top Cuts in St. Catharines every time because she cuts good hair and she's nice to me. She's a nice lady. She's kind. I like the way she does her business, and that's where I go to get my hair cut. And to me, it's no different selling records or playing shows.
So you don't think a Discord or a French Kiss Records could really happen today?
I don't think it could. I mean, I'm trying to think of a new label that's jumped out the way those labels did, and I can't, you know? It seems to me like the idea of a label as a thing you can start as an imprint, as a boutique idea, and grow is next to impossible now. Because the thing you're selling is what no one's buying, you know? When we got on Arts and Crafts, they had a very unique approach, which was they did 360 deals, which was like they managed you, they made your merch, they sold your records, and they took a piece of all of that. They didn't take as much of a piece as a major label would, but they took a little bit of all of it. And at the time, that was totally unheard of, totally unique. Now, major labels want you to do a 360 deal, right? And still take more. So it's so unfavorable to the artist that, you know, the relationship, like a label coming to your rescue is kind of, other than in, you know, if you're a rapper or an R&B star or a YouTube star, you might get $1 million deal now. Right. Anybody else, forget it. Yeah. It's not even close.
Madonna owns a record label and runs one, but then she released on Live Nation, I think, last time. Yeah. Which is a production company.
Yeah. And, exactly, man.
And they're into merchandising. I've seen T-shirts with the live. It's a Live Nation production, right? So it seems like they've become kind of the king of 360.
Yeah, I mean, the music industry is going the way of everything else, which is, you know, corporatism, mega consolidation. You know, you think you're buying Perrier, but you're actually buying Nestle. So you're like, okay, I'll buy San Pellegrino. Well, you're still buying Nestle. Right. You know, like all these things we think we have this illusion of choice and diversity, and it's all owned by the same people.
But it's the indies that kind of keep. I mean, it was hip hop guys and punk rock guys that kept vinyl relevant in the 90s when Epitaph was selling a bunch of CDs.
Yeah.
And then now the majors, they're bumping out 5,000 pressings to get their 200,000 of some soundtrack out.
Totally.
But indie, I mean, even with Ian MacKaye, he was putting everything together. Like, does indie still, even with the new model you're using, Indiegogo, like, does indie still have the power to save something people care about? The DIY model, is it?
I don't think it does. No? I'm sad to say that I don't think real... You know, what indie is now still falls under a corporate umbrella. So if you're a YouTube star, okay? I mean, that is as homemade as it gets, right? Yeah. You're a kid in a bedroom with your acoustic guitar. You sit on your bed and you tape yourself and you put it up online. But what's it sitting under? It's sitting under the umbrella of a giant ad firm, you know? And so the spirit is independent and the work is independent, and I admire and respect that. But what Ian MacKaye was able to do was actually find, you know, a record manufacturer who was independent and find a T-shirt maker who was independent. Right. And all those people were actually making their stuff and then selling it at a price they thought was fair. And, you know, that was an amazing time. And I was very lucky to be a kid then because it imbued me with a sense of possibility, and it made me respect artists, because I saw people like Fugazi or The Wedding Present or The Smiths actually, you know, doing what they said they were doing, you know? And now indie is like, you know, it's like saying that, you know, you're into fair trade coffee. It's like, well, have you actually researched whether that's fair trade, or are you just accepting that it's fair trade because that's what it says on the label?
It's a psychological placebo.
It's a psychological
I did something
placebo.
Good for the world today with my Starbucks cup. So.
Exactly.
Yeah. Well, that's some food for thought. I think I'm a little bit more optimistic. Like, I like that Patreon's able to. I know that people have to like YouTube is kind of the channel, but I found these really interesting content creators.
Yeah,
right?
Patreon is really interesting.
So-
Podcasting seems to be a very independent world still.
Right.
They haven't figured out quite how to monetize podcasting past a pretty tight independent model.
Yeah.
And that is kind of interesting and exciting. And I think there is some potential there in, like, you know, could bands have their own channel?
Right.
Or instead of making albums, could you create a situation where you were sending people 2 or 3 tracks a month and they were paying you on a monthly basis for those 2 or 3 tracks? I think that also has a lot of potential and is exciting, and that's the aspect of the internet that I think is cool. You know, you can create communities of support,
Right.
and you can actually be accountable to each other instead of this triangle model. There's just a back and forth, and that's cool. You know, that's an exciting idea.
Wonderful. Well,
Yeah.
thanks a lot for your time.
Dude, it's a pleasure. It's so nice to talk to you.
Yeah,
man.
well-
Thanks for the cool questions.
We'll let you make some more music.
All right.